Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could pick up on Mr. Denham's comments, this CR debate here in Washington actually came right during the middle of this event. And we were told here that if we didn't pass the CR, that FEMA was going to run out of money by September 25th. And I remember going home that weekend wondering what I was going to tell these people, how we would allow this to happen here in Washington. And I don't know where the miscommunications came, but nobody's going to convince me that somewhere politics wasn't being played here. And the people back in my district were the football. So I'm not pointing a finger at anyone, but wherever it happened here in Washington, I hope it never happens again. Because I would recommend those that are playing that game go to the areas like this and tell these people that we're using this to try to pit one side against the other. I didn't appreciate it. I don't know where it happened, but it should never happen again. Some of the people that were flooded out here again were actually flooded out in 2006, and they signed papers to be bought out, and they still haven't received any of the money. And as they were cleaning their homes out again, they told me that they're not even going to contact FEMA because they're afraid that if they get another check from FEMA, they'll have to give it back, they'll spend it, and they won't have it again. And I'm just wondering why it would take so long for folks from 2006, and here we are 2011 in another flood, why they haven't received their buyout.
I'd have to go back and look at those specifically. I know from my experience in Florida, doing buyouts are a challenge. Generally, it's a cost share. We do 75%. It requires that the state and local governments prioritize the funds for that. The 25% match is oftentimes a huge challenge for the individuals. Plus, there's other things that oftentimes factor in. There are going to be deed restrictions on a buyout that would prohibit any construction back in those areas or any development back in those areas. So from the standpoint of trying to get the match, trying to get through all the hurdles to actually do the buyout and then do the buyout and demolition is a complex process. What happened from 2006 forward, I'm really going to have to go back and ask staff to respond back in writing. I just know my experience is it is a challenge. The other point you made about the mitigation dollars following after, part of that is based upon, hazard mitigation dollars are based upon the percentage of the assistance provided. And it's usually at 6 months that we get our first initial lock-ins that will tell us the approximate amount. But both in Pennsylvania, but in New Jersey and other states, we've recognized the value of early buyouts. If we can get direction from the state, that will be the priority for their dollars. And if we have some inkling what those dollars look like, is begin that process in concert with the repair and cleanup. And again, it's a very challenging, but I think one of the huge hurdles that we run into oftentimes is the cost share requirements of the 25% match. Is the government going to make that? Is it going to come from the homeowner themselves? And then the other issue that also gets to be a time consuming is fair market value and trying to determine that as we do the buyouts.
Yeah, I was in a community in Wakanakwa, and as I was standing there, they took me out to a telephone pole and showed me. The Susquehanna River is one of the most flooded rivers in America. They showed me all the marks on the telephone pole for all the various floods, and we were hit twice, as you know. Tropical Storm Lee followed, so we were hit twice, and this actually was 2 feet higher than Hurricane Agnes. But it was just remarkable how many pieces of how much paint was on this telephone pole from how many floods. They might have had 5, 6, 7 significant floods in this little community. At what point does it make sense that we come in and just move these people out? Isn't it more costly over time to come in and constantly, because it's going to be flooded again?
Absolutely. I think that if you look at some of the floods this year, we've actually had floods of record across this country, including what we saw in Pennsylvania where we see that Agnes. Those floodings would have been much worse had not previous buyouts occurred. And so I think that, again, these are decisions local leaders and homeowners make. It's not something that we necessarily want to force, but I think where we can provide the financial incentive and streamline the programs, As the IG will point out, I agree. Anytime we go to 100%, there's all kinds of issues unattended. But I think if you're going to adjust cost share up, it should be those things that do long-term savings versus just the traditional repair and rebuild. So mitigation programs, buyout programs, if you wanted to look at cost share adjustments where you could remove a hazard permanently from the U.S. taxpayer exposure, those would be areas where I would look to either reduce the requirements or to increase cost share to more successfully complete those. But it does have economic impacts because you're going to lose task base. These have to be permanent changes. We just don't buy out and let them rebuild 5 years later when memories fade. And in many cases, there's also the emotional issue of people who grew up in these homes having to make the decision to sell and move out and see their neighborhood go away.
Thank you.